Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary. It's time for the podcaster who's always trying to. Did I just say podcast? That's to say this is. Well, I do sometimes say, hey, this is time for the podcaster. Who, if I was a podcaster, it'd be say, hey, kiss your shoulders, hold your hands, stroke. Have your thumb stroke the other thumb. Something comforting and loving that you could do for yourself. So go ahead. It's time for the oddcaster, who's also a podcaster, not a podcaster, but I do say, hey, kiss your shoulders every once in a while and say, great job being human. Great job being shoulders. Love you. This is a podcast based in love, but really it's here to put you to sleep. And, words, it's time for the podcast who just got awkward. But I'm here to put you to sleep. It's time for Sleep With Me, podcast to put you to sleep. And I'd love it if you're a regular listener and you fall, especially if you fall asleep really fast, to check out our sponsors at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors. If you can't do it right now, when your hand hits the fridge tomorrow, go ahead. I know usually you have your phone in your hand anyway. So go ahead and open it up. Check out one of our sponsors or spread the word about one of them. It's what helps keep the show free for everybody. Thanks so much. Hey, how you doing? Before we get to the show here, I was just wondering if you're a regular listener of the show. I always ask if I could have your attention, if I could really have it here. Like, I'm just wondering if you use Sleep With Me on the regular basis, just like it was another service. If you consider becoming a patron of the podcast, like particularly if you listen to like 8 episodes a month or 8 episodes a week or 8 episodes a night, I just ask if you pause right now, actually, before you go to bed and think about the other services you pay for. You might pay cable TV and internet could cost you hundreds of bucks a month. You might pay for a music service or a couple streaming TV services. And just think about how often you use those things and compare it to how often you use Sleep With Me. I mean, I know for a fact, some of the show podcasts I personally support on Patreon, I use more than the music streaming service I pay for. So just think about how many hours a month or a week do you listen to Sleep With Me compared to music or compared to movies you watch on one service or TV. And does Sleep With Me have that same value to you as a service? Because the weird thing about Sleep With Me is it's optional to pay. So the people that choose to pay for it, they're the ones that keep it going for everybody. So it's kind of a weird conundrum I'm in you're in, because you kind of have all the power. So it's a little bit different. It's cool because people that become patrons or support our sponsors enable other people to listen to the show that might not be in a position to support it. I guess not that different than freemium music services or apps. But really what it comes down to is, do you get a lot of value out of the show? Just like another service, like, and you say, wow, I count on Sleep With Me to get to sleep, or I just enjoy it. I enjoy falling asleep to the show. Like, does the podcast bring you more joy than any of that stuff that you pay for on a regular basis? Does it compare? Like, does your usage compare? And if the answer is yes, and you're in a position to do so, I'd love it if you consider supporting the show at $10 a month or $20 a month or $5 a month. If it brings you that much value. And on top of that, you'll get an ad-free podcast feed you can use in most podcast apps. You'll get tons of behind-the-scenes stuff on Patreon's The Lens app. And you'll be a part of something bigger. You'll be a rebel. You'll be rebelling. You say, I'm paying for a free podcast to keep it free for other people I might not even know so they can get a good night's sleep. It's really something cool. It's a cool kind of rebellion. It's as cool as the other side of the pillow. So if that resonates with you, consider going to sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron and supporting the show. Thanks. It's time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone. It's time for the Sleepy Supporter Zone. And I want to thank Jennifer, who supported Wix. Wix.com/sleep20. Is where Jennifer went, and Jennifer is going to share with me her website that she's working on soon, so I'll be sharing it again. But if you're building a Wix site or you supported one of the other sponsors, let me know about it so I can celebrate you. Because really, this is The Sleepy Supporter Zone are the heroes helping us keep this podcast free for everybody. Sleepy Supporter Zone celebration. And now the show will actually get sleepy. Let's get on with the show. Oh, you can find wix.com/sleep20, all of our sponsors at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors. Oh, Mr. Bard, who helps out on this show?
Chris Posty Posterson sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the Legend also edits episodes. Kenny, Scotty, and Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the mystery bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at jonathanmann.net. Could be for Father's Day, which is coming up soon. Or could be just to say, hey, you're cool. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance to be part of Nine Vale Presents. So now on with the show.
Thanks, Mr. Bard. I'm at Dearest Scooter on Twitter and Instagram. Those are great places to find me. You know, when you spread the word about the show, let people know that Sleep With Me is free. It's a podcast you could check out if they don't know how to. You could show them on their phone. You just people say, "Hey, I'm having trouble sleeping." Or, "Hey, what? You listen to any good podcasts?" Well, there's one I kind of don't listen to, but I do. And show them about the podcast or let them know your honest experience with it. It really is the main way we grow the show, and other people find out about it. If it helps them fall asleep, then it's great. Otherwise, maybe they check out another great podcast during the day. But what do you say we get on with the show? Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it the bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed and turn out the lights and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature or routine. Whatever's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that. That's what I mean. I got this safe place here for you. Or it might not be something. You should say, like this happens to me. I say, I don't know what's up. I just can't. You get a bit baffled, or at least I do. But whatever the situation is, I'm here. And I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents. I'm going to go off, believe me, I'm going to go off topic. And like a meander. So did I say rusty meanders? That was one of my main. I don't know why I associate the word rusty meanders with overalls. And maybe we could come back to that, because I used to say Oshkosh Bagosh a lot in this podcast. So maybe we could figure out a way to go back to that and say return to our. You say Scoots is returning. He's got his podcast returning to its roots. He's right there, right around 800 episodes or so. And he said he's bringing his podcast back to its roots. And they say, okay, so what, like a kid that can't fall asleep? No. Grounded in care and empathy? Well, no, but kind of. I mean, that's part of the podcast still. No, he's going to be saying Oshkosh Bagosh more. And holy mackerel and a couple other ones. It's not his catchphrase. His catchphrase is he re-meanders. Okay, but if you're new, let me take a second. Hey, glad you're here. And I'm glad, I really am glad you're here. And I will tell you, let's see how this goes, okay? Because this podcast doesn't work for everybody. And I hope it can help you. So that's why I want to take a second time out here. Or if you're a regular listener, hey, welcome back. But this podcast, most regular listeners listen to it 2 or 3 times before they became a regular listener, which I guess is a paradox in itself. But they said, well, okay, this podcast is a little bit different. First time I was trying to make sense of it. The second time I was a bit baffled. And the third time I realized, oh, okay, I don't get it. So I do get it. So if you're new, all I ask is you see how it goes. But there's no pressure on my end other than that. I mean, I'd like to help you. I'd like to keep you company as you fall asleep, but let's just see how it goes. A couple other things I want you to know. Structurally, what you expect. Show starts off with business, which you heard. This is more important for the regular listeners and the like super users that listen to a bunch of episodes, because that's what keeps the podcast free for everybody. Then there's an intro. Then there's some business. Then there'll be the story, which tonight will be our episodically modular series, Big Farm in the Sky PI. Then there's some thank yous at the end of the show. So that's just structurally what to expect. Let me talk a little bit about the intro, though, because sometimes people say, when's the bedtime story start? And I could tell you, if you're looking for that, it starts around 18 to 20 minutes or so into the show, because we have an intro that's right around 14 to 12 to 16 to 18 minutes, where I try to kind of explain what the podcast is, but more, establish a baseline of nonsense and senselessness, and friendly nonsense, and I try to explain what the podcast is, and I realize I find the podcast baffling. Also, I'll overuse words that I like. And the main thing, the way the intro kind of developed, was a sensible thing of for most people, they fall asleep, you need a wind down routine, right? You got to ease yourself into bedtime. You know, we've talked, I don't know, it's been a while since I've said Oshkosh Bagosh or, pontificated on shoehorns. It has been a while. Also, it's been a while. This stage of my existence, I've never owned a shoehorn. I've used some, I've held some, and I don't really need a shoehorn because it'd just be one more thing. But I guess my thing is you can't shoehorn. Here's a generational thing. Maybe I was like at the post, like my father had a shoehorn. My mother, what if that was the shoehorn story? Or shoehorn leghorn. I think that's the last time, like hundreds of episodes ago, or you say Scoot says last week when you're talking about shoehorn leghorn. Yeah, that was the shoehorn. That's a children's book I'll write one day. My father was a shoehorn. My mother was a leghorn. And that's, maybe shoehorn foghorn. I like that better because there was like what was it? Something Foghorn Leghorn. Wasn't that the name of the giant chicken in the Bugs Bunny cartoons? I guess it doesn't make sense. Oh no, that was the first name. Shoehorn Leghorn though would be, or Shoehorn Foghorn, Shoehorn B Foghorn. The shoehorn that was a foghorn. Okay. So this is one of the meanders that goes on in the intro where I try to explain what the show is. And shoehorn beef foghorn. I can't get enough of that. It also your mouth when you say, go ahead and say it with me. Shoehorn beef foghorn. Shoehorn beef leghorn. Isn't it almost sound like when you're when you say the word chew, like you're chewing, or chew, chew, chew. I guess because shoe and chew do rhyme. I didn't realize that. I'm not kidding. This is where it's unintentionally funny. Until I said it, I didn't realize that shoe and chew rhymed. Another part of my brain that isn't linked to my rhyming brain said, that feels the same in my mouth. Shoe and chew. Wonder why. Yeah, that's why I'm cut out to make this podcast. So the intro just lets people ease into bedtime, and then some people fall asleep during the intro. Some people fall asleep after the intro. Some people fall asleep, some people skip the intro. Some people listen to the whole show. So whatever works for you, you'll find out. Or there's people that use the show in different ways all the time. Some people that don't fall asleep during the show, they fall back asleep. They don't start listening until they wake up. So you just see how it goes. I guess that's my main thing. Oh, but the intro, I guess my main thing is to ease your intro. Like, because some people expect the intro to be concise or make sense. And I just wanted to, I guess it's a little late for that. But I kind of did an example. That's also how the intro works. Unintentionally, I'm showing off my style, my Foghorn Bee shoehorn style. So, okay, so that's the intro. Then tonight will be then the story, which is a episodically modular series you could listen to in any order. This just happens to be the season closing episode before we do a season recap episode. But like I said, you could listen to it in any order. There's a big catch up at the start, so we'll get you caught up. So this is a structure show. No pressure to listen. This is the one podcast, like I said, where you kind of discover how it works best for you. Or, the great thing about all the people that help keep the show free by, going out of their way to do that is that there's all these different style episodes. So some people say, well, that's the style I prefer, so I'll just listen to those ones. Some people listen to every episode. Some people kind of pick and choose and create apps and create like a playlist in their apps and stuff. So just see how it goes. No pressure to listen. Here's the other thing. There's no pressure to fall asleep. I'm going to be here for an hour to keep you company. And if you need it, you could run 8, 10, 12 episodes in a row. So, I'm here to help ease you off into bedtime. So there's no pressure to listen, no pressure to fall asleep. I mean, I do believe the reason I make a show is because I believe you do deserve a good night's sleep. And I know it's not easy. And I'd like to be here and just keep you company as I can. You say, well, I make the show just as much for the people that can't sleep as the people who fall asleep in first 4 or 5 minutes. So, so that's the kind of structure show. That's the things to know. I did say I was going to talk about Oshkosh Bagosh, but then by Oshkosh and Bagosh, I got distracted by old Shoehorn, Leghorn, Foghorn the Third or something. And went off topic. So maybe we'll go back to Ash. That was just like I don't know. It's a nice word. I know it's probably, I guess, I don't know. Did I research this in the early days? Was Oshkosh Bagosh a thing before it was a brand, or has it always just been a brand? I don't know if I've ever owned, do they make adult clothes? I'm going to have to look that up later. I think, because I was thinking of meanders, and then I was thinking of, when I say rusty meanders, I think of overalls. And then when I think of overalls, I immediately think of Oshkosh Bagosh. I think they only made kids' overalls, maybe just in the 80s, and I didn't own any. I think, so I had 6 kids in my family. I think there was one pair of green Oshkosh jeans or something like that were secondhand from one of my cousins, in our home, but I was already outgrown them. Or they arrived at my home because I have so many cousins that it was like, what do you call that? Secondhand, you call it when you, so there's a lot of clothing exchange. It was just great of being a part of a big family is, you'd say, man, but so, I don't know, maybe I'll get some I'm not like an overalls person. But just because I need less clothes, like I said, okay, well, I don't need, if I have a denim shirt, it's fine, but I don't really need any denim above the waist majority of the time. But I could be wrong. I mean, you could say, Scoot, you just wear a shirt, you could do it just like they do, like when you put that piece of wheat in your mouth, the full Huck Finn or Tom Sawyer or whatever. And you say, okay, then I fold it up in my bare feet, right? No shirt, bare feet, just my Oshkosh Bagoshes. And I'd say, well, a couple of things. I do a lot of running, so I know, like, my upper body, there's a certain part that gets chafed. And that's with, like other materials. So denim, I'd worry about that. And 2, I just don't know. I mean, I can see that there'd be airflow. I mean, the cool thing would be that I would have somewhere to put my hands, like holding my lapels or whatever you call those things, my stirrup, what do they call those, straps? I don't know. So anyway, I think you got a good idea if you're new of me going off topic a few times. Ideally, and I don't want to be overconfident by saying, well, if a podcast is going to work for you, maybe you forgot about, took your mind off stuff. And that's a goal here. I'm really glad you came by. I'm really glad you came back, those of you. Thanks so much. It's great to see you. Great to be here in your ears. I really appreciate your time. So see how it goes if you're new. Give it a few tries if you wish. But I'm glad you're here. I really work hard. I yearn and I strive to help you fall asleep. And here's a couple of ways. Really, if you're here listening, you can find all this at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors tomorrow. But these partners coming up here, these are what keep the show free and help us keep the show going. Hey, before we get to the story here, I just ask you if I could have your attention for a second. If you're a regular listener to the show, if you're not, don't worry about it. But if you listen to like a couple episodes a week or 8 episodes a month or 8 episodes a night, I just ask if you'd take some time right now or tomorrow and just kind of do some mental math of like, okay, I listen to 16 hours of Sleep With Me a month. Is there any other service I use for 16 hours? Well, TV, yeah, maybe. Well, that's $120 a month, my cable bill or whatever. Okay, movie services, maybe 4 hours a month. Music, it's about 15. Okay, well, what do you pay for those services? And you don't necessarily have to pay for Sleep With Me. That's a cool thing. But if you decide that you value Sleep With Me as much as those other things you pay for, consider paying for Sleep With Me. It's rebellious to pay for a free podcast. But when you do it, you support it, you keep it there, you keep it free for you and everybody else. And it's really something that's cool. Like I don't know how else to say it, but to people, if you're already a patron, thank you for doing that. Or if you support a sponsor or something like that, thank you so much. Because you're helping keep the show going. That's what I say every time, and I mean it. And if you say, wait a second, I can't believe I watched that. I subscribed to that movie service, and I only watch 2 movies a month, but I listen to 40 hours of Sleep With Me a month. Get over to sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. Become a patron. You'll get an ad-free podcast feed. You'll get a ton of cool stuff in that feed, and you'll be making sure the show's there for you and everybody else. Sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. Thanks. All right, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of our episodically modular somewhat serialized series, because this is the last episode, except for the recap episode of our episodically modular series, Big Farm in the Sky PI, Season 2. Yeah, what was once called the Phantom Minnow season, but maybe that, like, so what if you're new or you never heard one of these episodes before, you might say, hold on, Scoots, I didn't hear the first episode. Or hold on, Scoots, I listened to episode 3 and this is episode 12. So let me put you at ease, because that's what my job really is here. So you could listen to these in any order. That's what episodically modular means. I don't know. I just like the way modular sounds. Because, well, you can modular, that you move, you know what I mean. Yeah, but I'm also going to catch you up on everything here. So Big Farm in the Sky PI, Season 2, is Season 2 of Season 1, which is called Big Farm in the Sky PI. It's a tale of Simon, Uncle Simon, G and DK. Uncle Simon was a earthly resident, just like all of us, who passed on to live life in the big farm in the sky, like a second stage of existence. I guess second stage is a little presumptuous. Another stage of existence. And in that stage of existence, it wasn't like anything I'm familiar with from my, like things I've been exposed to, because it wasn't all good, it wasn't all bad, and it wasn't all neutral. The big farm in the sky is just kind of like a different stage of existence, and it kind of is a place you could get a new start, and it's a new start for Uncle Simon. He decided he would be a PI, a private investigator, helping solve mysteries. And also, one thing to know about Simon is Simon had, and I say HAD, because currently we'll catch you up, the ability to visit Earth, particularly to communicate with his niece and her best friend, that's G and DK, and keep in touch with them. So that was not everybody, very, very minuscule amount of people that travel to the big farm can come back to Earth and visit. or even communicate with Earth. So that was season one. Was Simon was up in the big farm in the sky solving cases, and he would check in with G and DK, and they would help him. So that was pretty much season one. Season two takes place mostly in Florida, on Earth as we know it, in the great retirement community known as the Towns. That's TOWNESs. One of the largest communities where DK's Aunt Penny lives. And G and DK, they're in middle school. They took some time off of middle school to do an independent study program, running a business in the Towns, very similar to Uncle Simon, solving mysteries, kind of, and cleaning out garages. And they were doing that as part of like for a semester. I don't know. They talked to their school into it, and their school agreed. And so season two has been Simon helping G and DK solve cases here on Earth. But because this is the last episode, a couple of things happened. G and DK stopped solving cases in the last episode as the semester was coming to a close, and you can listen to that episode. Not super important. That's the detail really you need to know, because they got to go back home at some point. But at the same time, Simon had lost his ability to keep in touch with them and return to Earth. So Simon is now just in the big farm in this last episode. Just a minor detail, but again, you don't need to. How did it happen? Kind of mysterious. I mean, a lot of stuff in the big farm. I'm still earthbound. I'm an earthbound human. That's what they call us, I think, out there. It's interesting, though, because that's what people call from outer space call us, too, but because we're earthbound. So I don't understand all the mysteries that encompass the big farm in the sky, because the whole idea was a mystery. Like I said, is a big farm in the sky, because these are common questions. Scoots, is a big farm in the sky purgatory, limbo, the good place, or the hot double hockey stick place? And it's, as far as I can tell, it's none of those. And you say, okay, is it reincarnate? No, because Simon still has full consciousness. My ego must be in charge of that story. Because you say, well, what belief system can I retain my consciousness? Because that's what I'll go for. So it's none of those. It's just another stage of existence. I think I was trying to answer another question. I forgot what it was. But so, I think that's it. So Simon's up there. Simon, of course, misses G and DK. G and DK miss Simon. And let's get to the story. Also, we have a celebrity setup person who just drove straight from Los Angeles, even though I told him you could stay at the Motel 6 in Lost Hills. That's my favorite Motel 6. Shout out. At least for me. That's only my opinion, though. And I told him I'd pay I'd give him a $25 credit towards a room, which is around $50 or so. But he said he preferred to drive straight here. Mr. Antonio Banderas. As the lady says, the gentlemen, the boys, the girls, the friends beyond the binary. It's time to crack this case. It's time for Big Farm in the Sky. P.I. Yeah. Thanks, Antonio. So how's the drive up? I think it would be impolite for me to say it was exhausting. Oh, well, why don't you lie right in my bed, which is, I have that new hybrid mattress from Casper. Not to put a sponsor plug in, but I love it. Why don't you lie there and just listen to the podcast and take a nap? Because we've trained you to sleep so quietly while I record, and then maybe we could play some Munchkin, or I'll just let you sleep. Maybe I could drive you back to Los Angeles as a thank you, my friend. I'm taking the weekend to hang with you. I thought we were gonna go do some things. Oh yeah, I forgot we're hanging this weekend. But yeah, go ahead and take a nap in my bed, and listen to the podcast just like a listener. Oh, my friends, I'm talking to the listeners now. I get to be just like you. Well, those of you that go to the live show, mixed with those of you that listen to the podcast. Good night. Good night. That's Antonio Banderas, everybody. It probably helped my pacing and quietness to know he's right in the other. Oh, he's lying down. I can't raise my voice, but I would have told him shoes off. Now he's kicking his shoes off. And you get, fully clothed in my, in my bed, it's fully clothed on top of the comforters. He knows the rules. So thanks, everybody. Time for Big Farm in the Sky PI. Hey, Diane, it's me, Simon here. Just checking in to update you on some stuff, Diane. I'm in the middle of an adventure, and I wanted to take a moment and stop and process things by talking to you. And also, so you're updated and everything. So thank you, Diane. I've been trying to figure out how to get back to Earth and G and DK because it just is an ongoing issue, me getting back there. And also I was trying to figure out, because as I said, Diane, time passes differently here in the big farm. And I know not everybody knows that, even you, even as wise as you are, Diane, you're probably, that's... So I said to myself, Simon, you kind of got to crack your own case, even though you don't know what it is. I have to crack the case of getting back to Earth and G and DK, or maybe come to some acceptance that I won't be able to go back there. Because one part of me, Diane, says, well, who are you to be able to go into a new stage of existence and then go back to Earth? You're having your cake and then you're visiting it, you're going to the ice cream shop and eating, that's might not be fair. Not everybody else gets to do that, Simon. Maybe you had some time with GK. So I'm not ready to accept that, Diane. So I said, well, if I start investigating things, then maybe I'll just be distracted and maybe I'll figure things out. Maybe I'll come to some acceptance. Maybe just like, there is a healthy MOURING going, maybe that's part of it. Even if it's just my connection with Earth, maybe they said, well, we got to ease this guy in. Simon's, we can't give him the full big farm, so we'll keep him in touch with Earth for a while. It could be their strategy, Diane. Yeah, whatever strategy, my strategy was to look into things, because they said, again, this stuff with the silent founder and the karmic points and the whole heavenly solutions business is still kind of vague to me. But all of that cropped up at the same time. So I headed to the HQ, the big campus built around my home, and I thought I would look for solutions there at Heavenly Solutions, business that we repurposed and reinvented. Even though there was the founder there and who hired me and put me to work on investigating karmic points, he said, okay, let's start here. So then I tried to look, I said, well, where in a giant, tech campus would I get started? If I was I said, okay, there's an office. I looked through the office. I said, maybe there's secret panels or something, but there wasn't anything like that. But I felt like, sometimes, Diane, and maybe this is just something I've developed over this time being Big Farm in the Sky PI and wanting to become the Phantom Minnow and then becoming the Big Farm in the Sky PI in Florida, the assistant to the real Big Farm, the real PIs, G and DK. What was I going to say? I thought I learned a new skill. Oh, trust your gut. And my gut said that this headquarters was the right place. So I said, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I said, okay, if your gut says be here, let's be here, Simon. Come on, let's start walking around. And, just like taking a shower, going for a walk, here's a chance for me to just walk, because it's just a giant oval. So I could walk in its multiple floors, and I could go in two directions. So I could pretty much walk for infinity or whatever, eternity. And not that it was my plan, but so I started walking through campus, and it was a little bit busier because we reinvented that business, G and DK and I. So there was like walking and then activities. People would be saying, hey, we're about to have a shuffleboard tournament, Simon. Why don't you join us? And I would have to debate sometimes, depending. I said, shuffleboard, okay, because I said, that's also a good thing. But other things, they'd say, well, I'm kind of trying to go, I'm walking and thinking, or trying not to think and then walking. Because I'm trying, like, and they said, well, can we help? And I said, well, maybe. I'm trying to get back to Earth. And they said, isn't everybody? Because, it's a pretty common thing up here. Or aren't we all? And then, Diane, that made me appreciate it more. He said, well, everybody here would like to go back and see their their version of G and DK, or go to their favorite spot, or those kind of things. But I don't know. I thought I was looking for something specific, and then I said, well, let's go low. So I started going on the lower levels and walking around. And I said, don't worry, Simon, stick with it. And then a few times, this is where things start to happen, Diane. And it's weird that it's in a giant oval, but I started to hear this like a whirring noise, not a piercing whirring. Whirring is like a W-U-R-R-I-N-G, maybe, Diane, instead of W-O-O. I was trying not to W-O-R-R-Y-I-N-G. So I heard it, and I said, what's it? The air conditioning. I said, oh, no, Simon, we don't have, it's, there's one thing, climate controlled up here most of the time. So I said, no. And I was like, who's hearing this whirring? So I kept paying attention to it, and then I started trying to find it, and I was looking in the wrong place, Diane. Because finally, I stopped, and out of the corner of my... Now, Diane, I don't know if you've seen the movies Star Wars. I think this was probably in the first Star Wars or the second one. And it might have been in the Rogue One. But there's like these little droids. They're a bit like remote control cars. They have 4 wheels, and they're a little bit taller than a human ankle. And they ride around like a remote control car. Now, a lot of them in the movie, they made these pleasant noises. And I'm not sure, I never dug into it, whether it was like, hey, this is message delivery or parts delivery, or what they were really doing. But the Star Wars is a big thing. Even up here in the big farm in the sky, people bring their fandom with them. And there's been a lot of interesting experiments and things tested. People are fans of stuff. And in the big farm, you say, well, let's try to make a TARDIS. That's the kind of stuff that goes on here, especially at Heavenly Solutions since GDK and I kind of took over. So while I was surprised to see this droid, I wasn't surprised. But what I was surprised about, but I guess I wasn't surprised either, because this is kind of a gimmick from the movie, is as soon as I noticed it, it noticed me noticing it, and it paused. And then it did not a reverse, but where it rolled towards me backwards at a 45-degree angle and then changed the direction. But it did it in a jerky way with pauses, like it was processing and buffering or something. And it did, whoever made it, which I was thinking it was making that, like almost like it's singing to itself, Diane, in a pleasant way. And I said, well, Simon, why not follow this droid? Because we're still walking around. And it tried to go make a right-hand turn, essentially, in a ovular building. So that's interesting. But, there's the hallway. So there are right angles within, just because a building's oval shaped, it doesn't mean it can't have right angles. It just means whoever designed, so it went into a right angle and then went into another hallway. And then I was following it along. And I think it knew I was following it, but I was walking at a different pace. And eventually it revealed something to me, Diane. We went down this ramp, that was behind some stuff, and then the next thing you know, it went into this vast cave. with rocks in the whole 9 yards. And when I went in the cave, I mean, it was big, like a tunnel, more of a tunnel than a cave. You're right, Diane. I paused because I said, wait a second, what would G and DK? I said, let's go back to the process, Simon. And as I paused, I said, okay, I tried to go through, and I said, okay, where are we going? And then I noticed the droid just at the edge of my eyesight as the cave kind of bent down and to the left, or the tunnel. The droid was waiting for me. And I said, okay, so what are our options here, Simon? What would G, in this case, what would G and DK say are options? One, wait, which we're doing now, or pause. We could follow the droid. We could go back the way we came. We could check the walls of the tunnel, which I did. And they say, okay, we can't go through the walls. Any other places we could go? No. So we could go forward, backward, or nowhere. And I said, okay, let's wait a little while. And the droid waited. A couple times when it noticed me looking at it, it rocked back and forth on its wheels. And I said, okay, what else is, I said, I don't know. And I said, okay, I guess let's move forward. I said, are you waiting for me? And then it started moving forward. And I said, okay, it wants me to follow it, or it's leading me or something. So I was leading it. It was leading me, Diane, and I was following it. And the next thing you know, of course, the cave or the tunnel opens up into a whole we don't know that it's a whole nother world. Because I was thinking about this, I said, well, it's probably not a whole nother world. It just exited somewhere I was unaware of. Assuming where the big farm in the sky is like its own. Let's just pretend it's a planet at this point, Diane. Even though I'm not saying it's a planet, I'm just saying for this analogy, we exited because it was a different environment. There was purple trees and pink grass and then sandy hills, like kind of like you'd see, but there was like sand sculpture type, but clearly sandy hill, like sand dunes. And there's a path kind of going through it, and the droid's kind of going through the path. And I said, okay, we're in a different place, and I'm still following the droid, not sure where I'm going. And then eventually we started kind of, like I said, okay, let's just keep following the droid. But I was kind of like also taking in the environment. And then we passed like this pond, a bit like a koi pond. But it was kind of like a neon green color, but not in a way that I said, oh boy. I said, interesting. And I paused to look in it. And I noticed, now I don't know if this is my imagination or not, Diane, but I could see G and DK like in a circle, packing up their stuff, clearly at Aunt Penny's house. And of course I didn't realize what it was. I just started talking to them. And they paused and kind of looked around, but they were looking at me, but they didn't acknowledge like they could see me, but maybe they could hear my voice. But then I noticed the circle was slowly shrinking, and eventually like it closed up, and I said, And then we walked I followed the droid for a while longer, and it happened again. And this time G and DK were eating at the Croc's restaurant with Aunt Penny, probably their goodbye meal. And it was constant. And I said, have a Croc, like it was shrinking. And I said, wait a second, it's shrinking at the same pace the last one was shrinking at. And then I thought to myself, okay, like I tried to think like G and DK. And I said, what's like causing the shrinking? Is it time? Is it something? And then the next time I got to water, I watched out of the corner of my eye the droid, and as the droid was going away, Diane, also the thing was shrinking, the portal or whatever, the view of them. So the further away the droid got, G and DK got smaller, and I said, okay, these two things, might have been correlation error, might not have been. But I said, this droid is involved in some way or something. And I said, okay, what should we do now? And then I tried to catch up to the droid fully, and the droid maintained a speed. Not that I said, okay, I'm not going to catch up with the droid. It was very efficient. It could just go always at the same speed as me to maintain a distance. So then I kept having to pause to catch my breath, and do the same experiment at other water points. And we're going through now instead of dunes. It was just different, nice environments. It was very nice, a very nice walk. But I said to myself, okay, Simon, when you stop, the droid stops. So what should we do now? And I said, well, catch the droid, I guess. So then what I started doing is I would pause, and then I would kind of walk backwards a little bit. I was pausing at places where there was a little bit of a rise so the droid couldn't see me. Like I could get just back enough. And then I would run around out into this one was more fields with these like palm trees. Maybe they're palm trees. They were metallic color. And I would run around the palm tree and I would find something to throw in the road that the droid was eventually going to be in. And then I would sneak back and we would go. And then the droid would still be waiting for me. And then I would go and then watch the droid it was mostly like palm fronds. Not really a great way to slow down a droid because it would go around them. So I said, okay. So I kept doing that. And eventually we got to this forest. And so there was a lot more trees and again, even though there's different colors and different textures and different smells, I think I even caught like vanilla cotton candy or something in the air. It was very, very similar to a forest. So it was using the same strategy and like trying to actually slow the droid down a little bit. So I acted like I was, and the forest made it easier for me to kind of sneak off the trail because there was more trees for me to hide behind. And eventually I found some big branches. So I said, okay, Simon, we're going to get these branches. We were going to block the path of the droid. But I had to find all these branches. I had gone off pretty far off the trail. And I guess it's a little bit embarrassing, Diane, because you say sometimes these woods can be tricky. I couldn't find my way back to the path. And then as I tried more, I'm carrying these branches, I'm listening for the droid humming to itself. I'm turning, because I guess what happened was like when I first thought I was headed back to the trail, it took too long. So then I did one of those things where you step with your right foot to the right, then you step with your left foot to the left, then you spin 30 degrees, then you step forward, then you spin 15 more degrees to the right or clockwise, then you spin 80 degrees to the right clockwise, then you step again, then you look up and down, then 45 degrees counterclockwise. These are just estimates, Diane. Then you then you drop the branches, then you walk forward 50 paces, then you step back. So I couldn't find, I think what happened in that situation, Diane, was I got more lost. Then it was a listening. Now, this is a common thing, I think, but maybe not, is when you, so you're in a forest, and you got your forest sounds, and you also, it's undertoned by, not silence, but almost like white noise, Dan. You have the wind, you have, what you say is that sound or lack of sound, just like they say, and it makes a sound. If a tree falls in the forest, it makes a sound. So I was listening for the droid singing to itself, but again, because your ear was already hearing it, you're like, am I hearing that in my imagination or at a far distance? Or is it some birds chirping? Because again, this is the big farm. So I kept getting, I think I got further and further from the path, till eventually where I became to the edge of the trees in an overlook where we're on we're on a valley or below me wasn't a valley, it wasn't a CLIFF, but it was like it was high up, and then because I could like slide down, which eventually I'm getting ahead of myself. So I said, I don't know. I lost, like at first I had to sit down for a while because they said I lost the droid. And by looking for it, I guess at the time, Diane, looking back at it, I guess I had a 50% chance of finding it, even though, because we're at the edge of this this part of the forest. But I didn't think that at the time. I said, oh no, Simon, you lost a droid. It's connected to G and DK somehow. And I felt a little down. And then, just missing G and DK. And then I said, but then the voice of G and DK have taught me a lot about self-talk, being in the moment and looking at the moment is kind of the underpinnings of one of their investigative strategies that I've learned from them. So I said, okay, Simon, where are you? And I said, I don't know. And I said, what can you see? I was listening to G and DK saying this, and I said, I guess I'm not sure, is this a valley or a field or a meadow, but it was pretty far. I was fairly high up because I had a view. And in this case, the sun was setting. Oh boy, this sun, it was an iridescent sun. But it wasn't setting. It was like, I don't know, like before where you still, like it's supper time or something. And I noticed down in the field, or wherever, the meadow, far off, what looked like a giant table, and people sitting at a table, and I said, is this my imagination? And then I saw, like, smoke, like they were cooking something, and then I heard chatter. I thought maybe, and I said, well, that's at least somebody to talk to, if that's real. Like, let's go there and ask for help, ask about this droid. And so I slid down and climbed down this hill, or like whatever, like this, like I got down to the next level where the valley or the field was. And then I walked across quite a distance, but it was getting closer and closer. And then there was all these people eating, and I actually knew some of the people, like, they were people I'd met, no one I actually worked for, but people I'd met during my travels in the big farm. And they say, hey, you're a big farm in the Sky PI. Join us. And they had me down. And they said, yeah, we're just having it. This is beautiful out here, isn't it? And I said, yeah, I'm kind of lost, actually. And they said, oh, okay. Like, yeah, these are actually the Lost Hills. It's kind of a fun place to get lost in. Don't worry, you'll find your way. Like, this area is for people that like getting lost, like that podcast guy. He loves this. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, but I'm found now. And they said, oh, yeah, this is where you always, like this table, this is like the picnic area. And when you could see it, you go here, and then you have a picnic with other people that are like, and I said, are all of you just lost? And you just came here? And they said, well, yeah, we all just met over the past, like, hour or two. We've been enjoying some lemonade, and we're grilling up some food. But every single person, Diane, was someone I had come in contact with before. Now, I don't know the exact population of the big farm in the sky, so I did say to myself, Simon, don't overblow things. But my gut said, that's strange. But I couldn't quite put my finger on it at the time, Diane. Now talking it out, it sounds like, oh, Simon, hello. And then I told them about the droid, and I guess this didn't work out so great because, it started people talking about Star Wars and people offering their opinion about Star Wars. It started people talking about, like, I couldn't get to, like, that, he needed to find this droid or what mysterious, like what the mystery was, because everybody had their own opinions on workplaces with droids, Star Wars, new Star Wars, old Star Wars, science fiction. And it was a picnic, so it wasn't really a brainstorming session. And then as the sun got lower, everybody said, okay, like, let's pack it up. And I said, well, how do we, if this is the Lost Hills, like, how do we find our way where? And they said, oh, you haven't been here before. Good thing. Like, you're supposed to find us, I guess, because we've all been here before. And they said, okay, what you do is we all hold hands, and around the table, we form a big circle holding hands, and we do a ring around the rosy. And we do that whole thing. And then when you do the fall down part, when you stand back up, you stand exactly opposite facing the outside of the circle. And then you just walk straight from wherever you wherever you were in the circle. And you'll go like where you're supposed to go. Like you're supposed to be back at your house. So you sooner or later you'll know where you're going. And I said, good thing. And they said, well, that's how it works. So don't worry. You would have. And I said, okay, well, this is an interesting mechanism of the Lost Hills. So we did that. We got in the circle. We did the ring around the rosy and the other words, And I fell down, and then I stood up, and I faced out, and I started walking. And, this is a big farm, so it wasn't totally mind-blowing that I would walk in one direction and very soon lose track of everyone else. But that happened, And eventually, like, the moon came out. It was a full moon, very similar to regular Earth moon, Diane, probably bigger. And I saw these big hedges, like the entrance to a maze. And at this point, I was like, well, I got to say yes, right, Diane? So I just walked into the maze. And I said, okay, this is, and then I was in this maze and I was trying to find my way. Yeah, I was a little bit frustrated. So again, a couple of times I stopped inside and stuff. And I say, well, I was already in some sort of non-maze the whole day. And I was following this droid around, and then I was lost. Then I wasn't lost. Now I'm in this maze. I don't know where I'm going. And I was making turns, and I said, man. And then a couple of times I said, okay, Simon, just stop. Let's see. Do I need to come up with a system? You're just walking through the maze, blundering a bit. And then I heard two people talking, Diane, and they were kind of talking in low voices, like almost whispering. And they were talking, like one of them was saying, just hold on to the branches. And then the other one was saying, the branches keep moving. The other one said, you got to hold on to the branches so you can get through here. And, they were just kind of a little bit bickering. But I said, okay, well, at least I could find out. Maybe, it wasn't, I said, well, I'm needing some help too. It sounded like they were needing help. So I walked around the corner, and one of them had like clippers, whatever the thing you use to cut like big branches are. Pruning, not a pruning shear, but a big one, a two-hander for pruning, but not a saw. You know what I mean, Diane? And then I watched them, and it looked like the hedge was actually moving because one of them was trying to grab the hedge. So the other one, and I said, hey, and they turned, and then they said, hey, buddy, get over here. It looked like they were almost trying to break out of the maze or something, Diane. And I said, hey, and they said, you got to help us hold these branches. And I said, what are you trying to do? And they said, get through the maze. What are you trying to do? And I said, I wandered in here. And they said, you just wandered in here. And I said, yeah. And they said, this is the endless maze of, I can't remember. It had a lot of verbosity, or not whatever you descriptive words, of something mindless, endless, of eternity. And they said, you just wandered in here? And I said, yeah. And they said, you didn't come here on some quest? And I said, I said, can you be, I said, indirectly, I guess I'm on a quest, or I'm trying to figure something out, yes. And they said, most people come in here looking for something. And I said, well, okay. I said, you both are looking for something? They looked at each other and laughed. But they also had this look in their eye, Diane. And they said, well, like, this maze is, and they said, it's a pretty tough maze with all those words you said, endless. And they said, yeah. And they said, but we figured it out. We found these clippers, or maybe they said one of them, I can't remember, Diane, because that was like, it was a lot to take in. You know, you can't take in everything. And they said, we figured it out. If we could, we'll just cut through, straight through the maze. And they said, well, what if you don't go to the center? Then they said, well, we'll just keep making a grid search pattern, cutting through the hedges till we find the center of the maze. And they said, we got a piece of paper and a pencil too. And I said, okay. So they said, we just need you to hold the hedges because they keep trying to move out of the way. They don't want to be cut. And I said, well, I said, that makes sense too. And I said, what's at the center of the maze? And then they kind of harumphed Diane. They said, how are you here looking and you don't even know what you're looking for? And I said, how do you expect me to help you when you're taking that tone with me? And they said, well, we'll split the prize with you at the center of the maze. So we'll tell you what it is even, if you'll help us. And I said, well, you tell me what it is. And then I said, I'll think about helping you. And they said, we're all looking for the same thing. Everybody here's looking for it, right? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, the one guy with the clipper said, I could see it on your face. You're looking to return. To visit, or you miss somebody or something. And the other guy said, you want to get back. So do we. And that's what's at the center of the maze. And I said, to Earth. And they said, yeah, this is the impossible maze of a never-ending madness. I think that's what it was called. And they said at the center of it's a portal to Earth, and you could keep it or take it with you. It's a portable portal. I liked how that sounded, Diane. And they said we could share it. Like you could go through and go where you want to go. And, and they said, we'll figure out and I said, I've seen TV shows where you can't share something like that, 33. And the one guy with the clippers, the other guy with the pen and the pencil, he said, I'm going back. I don't need to hold the portal. Now, the other guy, Dan, this is total projection, but I had a feeling he was going back to gold's not worth anything. But I said, are you going to go back and take all the gold from all the historical places or something? And he said, no. I want to go back and, see my cat and pet it and then maybe go and do some other stuff that I forgot to do when I was there, like hang glide and stuff. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, let me think about this for a second, guys. And they said, come on, man. We need your help to hold these hedges. They keep moving. And I said, well, I can't help you. I said, you two keep arguing or, being disagreeable so I can hear you. But I'm just going to step over here and think about this. I have, and they said, please just help us, man. Please, please, please. And I said, give me a moment. And then one of the guys said, give him a moment. Of course he wants to get back. He used a soft sell, which was kind of effective. He said he wants to get back just like us. And then the other guy, I thought I saw him wink. He said, yeah, we'll even let you hold the portal. You could be in possession of it and take possession of it, Well, there was two of them and one of me, Diane. So then I stepped away and I said, DK, let me think on this one. And they said, who, what, where, when, why. That's another G and DK strategy. They said, who the heck are these guys? I don't know. What do they want? It seems like they're breaking the rules and they want help break. There wasn't any clear rules, but it seems like the hedge doesn't want to be cut. So maybe they're breaking the rules, maybe not. Okay, where am I? In a maze in the big farm in the sky. Okay, why? Well, why? Why? why do they want my help? So they can get to the center maze and get the portal. Or maybe they would blame me, Diane. I said, well, maybe they would do that. And they'd say, well, he was the one who cut it. Or maybe they would just not let me share the portal. Maybe they're being honest. Why they want to get to the center of the maze really bad. And then I said, okay, what? And I said, who am I? And I said, I'm a Big Farm in the Sky PI, right? And I said, what? Because, part of me was like, you're never going to you'll never get out of this maze, as Fish says. But I said, no. And I just started walking, Diane. And then I started trying to say, Simon, let's go and I said, we'll find our way, however long it takes. I said, actually, we have a lot of time. I mean, I tried not to think about the fact that, that maybe time was going to go by too fast. And, I kept trying to just talk to myself, Diane. I said, you're the Big Farm in the Sky PI. Then I was saying, let's crack this case. I kept hearing it in Antonio Banderas' voice when I was saying it. And then I started to kind of try to keep track of when I was turning right and left and trying to notice more about the maze. And then suddenly, Diane, I said, okay, yeah, pay attention, Simon. Stay in the moment. What are you seeing? And also at some point I heard them, those two sounded like they were irritated with me. But eventually I couldn't hear them anymore. And then you know what I said? I started to see, Diane, it's like as I was coming down to a T where you could go left or right, this was the first thing I saw. And maybe it was my imagination. I don't know, Diane. Because it was a hedge and not a topiary, but I saw what looked like through the shadows and the moonlight and the shape of the hedge, what looked a little bit like a cow to the right side of the hedge I was facing at the T intersection. So I went right. I said, I'm the Big Farm in the Sky PI. I remember a case with a cow and a case of the missing moose, I think. And then again, I saw just to the right, in the next intersection, what looked like a dog in the moonlight coming through and the dog jumping towards the moon. And then the next one, now this is what you say, Simon, this is not possible. But, this was just what I saw. On the left, because I could see a black turtleneck. It's Steve Jobs painting a painting, Diane. And I headed to the left. Then again, on the right, on the next one, I saw a shining crown. And I kept saying, I'm Big Farm in the Sky PI. And there's a crown shining. And I went to the right. And then the next one, it was like these birds eating ambrosia. It was out of a bowl. And I went to the left. And then it was a music box on the left, I think. And I went left. And then it was this, this notebook saying bad words. I think I can't remember if that's. I turned whichever way that was. Then the goddess Callie. Then it was like a dog peeing in the snow. That was definitely on the right. That one. And I think that was the last one day. And then I turned, and there was the center of the maze, a big clearing, and the moon's shining down on this platform. And in the center of the platform's a shimmering portal, Diane, shimmering and shining, waiting for me. Reflective and translucent somehow. And then I step towards it. I go up these steps, and the portal is like a big mirror. And I could see through it, and what I see is G and DK's room, not in Florida, but in, where they're at their house. They weren't in it. They were probably, hopefully, ideally, they weren't in college already or beyond. They were just flying from Florida home. And because I know they wanted to go to a couple of theme parks and ride some roller coasters. But I could also see, like I said, it was translucent and reflective. So I could see my reflection, but behind me wasn't the maze, Diane. I mean, I could see myself, but behind me was my room at my house in the Big Farm. That was converted into a museum, but it was actually in my living room where I'd normally check in with G and DK. And suddenly it all made sense, Diane. I mean, I think it makes sense to you, but just in case I'm wrong, I was like, wait a second, I'm the big farm in the sky PI, and I get help from G and DK. My job isn't, I'm supposed to be here, right? I'm not supposed to be in Florida. I mean, I'm supposed to be there for G and DK when they need my help. But, you know, they're you know, some of this is hard to accept as an adult, but they don't need me as much as you know, I need their help sometimes. They need my help sometimes. Yeah, but maybe this isn't a portal. It's like a FaceTime Plus or something, Diane. This is like just like, I guess, I said, wait a second, Simon, that's how it all started. You go to their room and get some help. They see what you need help with, and they kind of help you give it to them. And I wondered what this portal's name was, Diane. You know, Hardy Har Har. You know, we don't need to kid each other, huh? But you knew all that, Diane. I clearly, and you know what it all meant. Like, I'm supposed to be at the big farm cracking cases, and G and DK are supposed to be in their world, being kids. But we're still supposed to be connected. Just not, I mean, it's a new stage of existence. But I thought about those people at the Lost Hills. I thought about, I said, you know, it's not presumptuous for me to say I'm supposed to be here. People need, if the whole reason I was cracking cases was because people need cases cracked. You know, if they're looking for help, I should be giving them help. And karmic credits be darned. That's my job here. It's Big Farm in the Sky PI. And G and DK, you know, they're on their own journey, but I can be there for them, and they can be there for me. And maybe I never had, I don't know, Diane, if I ever had total freedom to just go to Earth. I mean, I did for a little while. And maybe it's a fluid thing. I don't know, because, you know, I'm just talking right now. But I reached up and I grabbed the portal, and it became kind of a small thing. I could slip it in my pocket. I could pull it out. Maybe, I'm still on my way back to my room now, or my place. And then I got to say, this isn't a museum anymore. I'm living here. But there was one other thing, Diane. Right before I reached out for the portal, my foot touched something, and it was a comic book. And I looked down, and on the cover of the comic book, it said, The Phantom Minnow, or The Adventures of the Phantom Minnow. And it had, it was just, now, it was beautifully drawn. It was obviously drawn by twins. And then it said, stories by GDK and Uncle Simon. And I could tell they drew it for me, and I don't know how it got there. And I picked it up, and I felt it in my hand, and I cried, Diane. Tears streamed down my cheeks. Like maybe they had drawn it and kept it in Florida, and maybe, I don't know, the portal brought it to me or just showed it to me, or I don't know. Maybe they self-published it to me. But then I opened it, and all the pages were empty, Diane, waiting to be filled clearly. And then I said to myself, okay, Simon, this could still be your hobby. These pages are waiting to be filled. You're the Big Farm in the Sky PI. You're not the Phantom Minnow. But I guess, I said, you don't give up on this dream either. Is that what you're saying, Diane, GDK? And I said, Simon, that's what you're saying to yourself, huh? And eventually, hold on, Diane, because I'm almost home. Hold on one second, Diane. I'm sorry, I went on such a tangent there that I got to I still got to get everybody. I'll be right back. Okay, Diane, it's me. So I did get my place back, and it's no longer a museum. It's a historical site, so I can't make any changes. But here I am, and the portal works. I mean, that. Come on, Diane. But well, you like to know what's going on. You like to. You're a great listener, Diane. You're just like G and DK, and I've been in touch with them. They're back at home, back at school. Things are smoothed out with their grades, and their project has gotten accolades. It's getting submitted for a national award. And I told them, we filled each other. They went on 17 roller coasters in a row, Diane. Wow, those two. They said they're proud of me, Diane, and I'm proud of them. And so I'm back being a big farm in the Sky PI with G and DK and your help, and they're back being kids, and when they need Uncle Simon, I'll be here to help them, Diane. So I'm the big farm in the Sky PI. I mean, I'm going to take a little time off now, but Diane, we'll talk soon. I want to thank everybody who became a patron recently over at sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. Appreciate that you're willing to do value for value and help keep the show free for you and everybody else. If you're listening and you say, oh, geez, I'd like to become a patron, you can do that over at sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. Okay, I want to thank Joseph, Gregory, and Allie. Thanks, and good night. Jeff, Mergles, and Derek. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Kimberly, Elena, and Cecilia. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Gregory, Stephanie, and David. Thank you, thanks, and good night. Chris, Callie, and Brian. Thanks, and good night. Debbie, Anthony, and Evan. Thank you, thanks, and good night. John, Kate, and Kayla. Thanks, and good night. Jennifer, Phillip, and Zoe, thank you, thanks, and good night. Kit, Josh, and Sarah, thank you, thanks, and good night. Erica, Emily, and Melanie, thank you, thanks, and good night. Samuel, Jennifer, and Sergeant, thanks, and good night. Tracy, Christian, and Lonnie, thank you, thanks, and good night. Maureen, Kathleen, and Gail, thanks, and good night. Melody, LG, and Julie, thanks, and good night. Deirdre, Lori, and Jane, thank you, thanks, good night. Celeste, Carmela, and Colin, thanks, good night. John, Capel, and Elizabeth, thanks, good night. Molly, Michael, and Brett, thank you, thanks, good night. Jake, Sally, and Aaron, thanks, good night. Marie, Allison, and Adam, thanks, good night. Lindsay, Thomas, and Jill, thanks, good night. Ezra, Kate, and Miss, thanks, good night. Sheila, Colleen, and Serene, thanks, good night. Matt, Joaquin, and Joey, thanks, good night. And Amelia and Steven, thank you, thanks, good night. Thanks, good night, everybody. Sleep With Me exists as a free podcast because of listeners who directly support the show, like those people I just listed on Patreon. And those people who support our sponsors over at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors. That's what allows us to bring the show to everybody for free. So I really appreciate it grows because of people that just spread the word and, natural conversation when podcasts come up. Say, hey, Sleep With Me is free. It helps me fall asleep. I enjoy it. Here's why. Here's how to find it in the podcast app of choice. Oh, you don't know what a podcast is? Let me show you. So thank you so much. We're a proud member of Night Vale Presents, a show that's just kicked off its second season, is the wonderful I Only Listen to the Mountain Goats. It's Joseph and John talking about music, life, art, and the process of recording the Mountain Goats' latest album, In League with Dragons, which by the time you hear this will be out already. April 26th it comes out. So you really get a cool insight into the creative process. You can find it wherever you consume your podcasts. I Only Listen to the Mountain Goats, or at nightvalepresents.com. We're also a member of PRX. You can find everything they're doing at prx.org. And plenty of other episodes ready to go for you if you need them. I'm here. Good night.